At the time I joined Hallam, we had 4 people, and we were turning over around 500,000 pounds. We have since grown to over 50 people. We're nearly 5 million turnover agency. Google is still by far and away the market leader when it comes to search, so pay-per-click activity. But I think, if we think about the impact on search from an organic perspective, the rise of AI overviews and AI mode have basically shrunk the space that used to be there for brands to get organic traffic. If you look at any market at any one time, only 5% of that market are actually looking for a solution. So if you're putting all your eggs in the search basket, you're only targeting that 5% of people who are ready to buy right here and right now. You're not influencing the 95% of people who are out of market. Don't be too broad. Find your niche, essentially. Find the area that you are actually genuinely good at, you're an expert at, and double down on that.
Hey, hi everyone. Welcome to your show, E-Coffee with Experts. Today we have Ben Wood, who is the Performance Marketing Director and Partner at Hallam. And this is your host, Ranmay, here, like always. So welcome to our show, Ben. How is it going?
Hello. Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. Good to meet you and good to be here.
Lovely, Ben. Before we take this any forward, Ben, why don't you talk us through your journey a bit, how it all started and how did you get in the digital marketing space, and also a bit about Hallam, your agency, and we'll take it off from there.
Cool. So yeah, I'm currently performance marketing director and a company director at an agency called Hallam. I've been at Hallam for almost 15 years, so an incredibly long time to be working in a digital agency. Before I joined Hallam, I was at a company called Experian for a few years. That was straight out of university. So this was at the start of digital marketing, really, given that my interview questions at the time were, what's your favorite website? So it was that basic around digital marketing at that time when I joined Experian. I worked there as a consultant, worked in the digital innovation team for a few years, and then essentially realized that I wanted to work in an agency because we worked with a few agency partners. And what it seemed to me like was that we were coming up with a plan, and then all the fun work was done by the agency. So I looked at kind of the work that was done by agencies and thought, I want some of that. So then I joined Hallam. At the time I joined Hallam, we had 4 people, and we were turning over around 500,000 pounds. We have since grown to over 50 people. We're nearly 5 million turnover agency. We've got clients internationally. So it's been quite a journey, and I've really enjoyed my time. I don't think I would go back in-house at this time.
Lovely. That gives all us in the agency network a, good amount of confidence when you say you'll not go in-house again, right? Lovely. So when you say that in-house has its own challenges, in general, the opinion is nothing against anyone, but in general, the opinion is, in-house life is a bit more stable and, you can plan your things day to day. And agency is a lot about hustle and bustle, right? So what is your take on it? How do you feel, how challenging, working for an agency is?
Yeah, I guess it's a mix. So I know I've got a lot of friends and ex-colleagues who've either gone in-house or continue to work in-house. And I know it's, I guess they would say, a slightly slower pace. You get more time to plan, more time to think about the work that's required rather than just diving from task to task. But I guess there's also the benefit of if you work in an agency and get the right clients that actually want to have a proper partnership. They want to invest in strategy and planning. And it's not just a tactical delivery partnership. So for us at Hallam, we do really try and invest in strategy work and consulting and training and building that relationship so we can get under the skin of not just one business, but multiple businesses and truly spend the time on understanding their challenges. So I think you can get the best of both worlds if you have the right clients and the right services. But yeah, I do obviously there's potentially people who would like to be sticking around in-house. Maybe when I want to have more of a rest and I get completely tired of agency, I might do that, but not for now.
Lovely. Talking about your personal brand, you are a speaker and author, actively sharing insights, on the stage. How does thought leadership, factor into your agency's growth strategy, and how do you kind of, operationalize it?
Yeah, I think since I joined the company a number of years ago, our owner at the time was a lady called Susan Hallam. She's an American lady. Over in America, I think they did public speaking as kind of part of their education system. So she was very strong on building personal brands. She was also very strong on getting us all to write blogs consistently and get coverage. And that's how we grew the business, really, from everyone getting out there and building their own personal brand. And this was 15 years ago ago now. So I'm now trying to carry on that push around thought leadership. I think it's a fundamental part of our DNA as a business. It's what's taken us to where we are today.
Mhm.
I don't think it should be reserved for just the most senior people. So it shouldn't just be kind of C-suite directors. I think any agency needs two streams. I think you've got those two lenses. Think about the technical buyer. So the head of digital marketing manager, they're more technical. They might attend conferences like Brighton SEO, Hero Conference, Measurement. They're going to be interested in the technical, how you deliver things. And then you've got those economic buyers, potentially the C-suite, the CFO. They're going to have completely different priorities. They're going to care about commercial impact and growth and kind of future trends. They're the ones that are probably messaging the technical buyer about things like GEO and asking what it means, for example. Our strategy for thought leadership is balanced on getting people speaking to both of those areas, the technical buyer and the economic buyer. I think just finally on thought leadership, I think the biggest challenge we face today is just the amount of volume of content that's now out there. Everyone's trying to share videos. Everyone's trying to share content. AI has made it so easy now to create kind of surface level generic content. And I think the key is having an opinion, having a point of view, adding value to this conversation that's not something that's already been said or written about elsewhere, which is really hard. But that's what I try and push the team to do.
Absolutely. And, talking about real time experiences, right? Which, like you said, AI has a lot of surface level content. I see a lot of content on, quite a few platforms and then you as a agency, core team member would relate to this, talking about creating, 8, 9, 10-figure agencies on YouTube and other platforms. And if you actually go and research about them, they haven't really even worked in an agency at all. And I'm talking about creating multi-billion dollar agency setup. So there is a lot of content or superficial knowledge, so to say, right, which is still being consumed, right? I was looking at the subscriptions that this guy has. It's phenomenal in terms of numbers, right? I'm not really sure what he would be selling, because he would not have, I mean, he doesn't have his own agency, right? So I can imagine how much of content is there now. Yeah. And then talking about leadership, and what is that one aspect of leadership, Ben, which you feel, you made differently when targeting the international growth for your agency versus a country specific growth or UK specific growth?
Yeah, it is definitely one thing that didn't used to be a factor for us. So thinking probably 7 or 8 years ago, most of our clients were UK based. We didn't have many clients who were global brands, international brands. So we approached it actually through a partnership with Google. They took us on into the International Growth Partner Program. We kind of brought 7 or 8 of the team into that program to understand, how to come up with a global strategy, the importance of localization. So now we do have some global brands, partly due to that kind of training program. But now when we approach international growth, either for ourselves as an agency or for our clients, we know that localization is essential. So we kind of preach about a global strategy, because I think there's great value in having a centralized global strategy so you can share learnings across different regions, different countries. But obviously you've got to localize your approach. So we know we have to lean on in-market specialists, for example, because our team are primarily UK based. We've got a few people in Italy and Spain. We've got some French speakers, for example, internally, but we have to lean on in-market specialists for not just translations of content, but things like payments, because payment providers are completely different in different markets for e-commerce, logistics, delivery, messaging, positioning, translations. As an example, we work with the university quite regularly for international recruitment campaigns, and there's massive differences in the kind of messaging you need to use for different markets. For example, if you're trying to recruit students from Southeast Asia or China, it's actually the parents that make the decision on where to send their children. So our
Yes.
messaging is for the parents rather than the children. Whereas if you're in the UK, you're targeting the actual students themselves. So yeah, localization, understanding the different markets and those nuances is absolutely essential. But we really do think having one person, or at least one client, manage the strategy centrally is essential.
And, talking about enterprise level clients, getting on board, the clients, the decision making is, the sales life cycle is so long.
Yeah.
There are so many decision makers involved in kind of getting an enterprise client onboarded. Talk us through the other bit of it, in terms of retention, right? So how what are your strategies or your agency strategies in terms of ensuring that, they stick around for a longer period of time?
Yeah. Well, primarily the last couple of years, we've had a real focus on large enterprise B2B clients. So for me, the biggest thing, there's two streams to it. There's technical, and then there's a relationship side in terms of retention. So I think
Yeah.
what's really key for us with B2B clients is the need to show an impact relatively quickly, and really show them the genuine commercial uplift of our activity, which is much harder than B2C. You think obviously e-commerce, you can show sales straight away in GA. You've got that data.
Yeah.
With B2B, yes, you can get leads, you can get conversions, but the problem is if for an agency who just shows leads and conversions, you'll often get the feedback from the sales team, well, they were all rubbish leads. They weren't the right client for me. They didn't really, I don't want them, turn that off. So we
Yeah.
try and focus immediately. Our first month of activity is going beyond those kind of surface level metrics like CPL and CPA into kind of metrics like pipeline contribution, hype to cost ratio, opportunity quality. And the way we do that is we'll link the CRM essentially to the ad platforms and to Google
Yeah.
Analytics through offline conversion tracking. The measurement side for me is absolutely critical. If you don't do that soon, like immediately, you're going to be on the back foot. That I think keeps clients happy regardless. And then the relationship side, I think trust, transparency, consistent communication, building relationships with not just, like I talked about earlier with the thought leadership point, not just focusing on one audience within the client. So you'll typically have a contact who's your primary contact, like the digital marketing manager or the head of digital, whatever that role is. But you also need to start building relationships with the sales team in B2B. You have to build relationships with the finance team, potentially with the C-suite. Try and build that network, and that's going to help you retain the client over the long term, because that contact will inevitably leave at some point. And if you only have a relationship with them, you're really going to be struggling when someone new comes in and you've got no other contacts in that business.
100%. That's a very valid point, because like you say in ABM, right? It's kind of mapping the entire account or the company or the org, and not just the end users that you're speaking to, right? So at some point, even if the potential stakeholders doesn't change, for example, you spoke about finance, which we kind of go through on a regular basis. For example, your invoicing, right? Even if it's not only about retention, but for your invoicing, and you need help at some point, kind of pushing through things to make it work in a big setup, versus, because in a typical mid-sized setup, you have the founder, the CEO, and all all your needs are taken care of, right? So within a typical B2B enterprise level setup, you need to have, your advocates internally across departments or functions, so that, again, it helps retention, like you said. So can
Absolutely.
totally relate to that. Moving on to PPC, Ben. So, it has kind of evolved so much, but overall, what do you feel has been the impact on AI, on the way Google Ads or the paid search happens these days?
Yeah, I think so. AI is obviously, I think it's focused on, it's impacted the actual platforms themselves. So the way that people now search the internet has been massively impacted by the rise of ChatGPT, Perplexity. Google is still by far and away the market leader when it comes to search, so pay-per-click activity. But I think, if we think about the impact on search from an organic perspective, the rise of AI overviews and AI mode have basically shrunk the space that used to be there for brands to get organic traffic. So we've seen a huge increase in the last 6 to 8 months in cost per click figures for paid search. So I think more brands are now having to lean on paid search rather than the organic to kind of plug that gap, because they've lost a tremendous amount of organic traffic. They've been over reliant on that channel for years, and Google are essentially now probably having a pay to play system on their platform, which is making it more expensive for advertisers because more people are having to do it. So that's one impact. I guess to overcome that impact, what we're trying to educate our clients to do is diversify their media strategies. So not just relying on paid search or SEO on Google. Look at where your customers are searching online. Look at how you can get in front of them, and don't just put all your eggs in the Google basket, because when changes like this happen, you're really going to be struggling. So that, it's going to be different for every client, but it involves research, audience research, whether they spend their time online. It involves competitor research to find those gaps. So, where's the blue ocean, for example, where no one else is online? Where can you start to invest your budgets to get that kind of early mover advantage? So yeah, that's our real approach on that diversification, to avoid the expensive costs now of paid search where possible. And obviously the other impact that we've seen when it comes to AI is not just the platforms, but the ability it now gives us to create things that previously we weren't able to do. So it's making ad creative much easier to achieve for small and medium enterprises. You can now do things in Google that you didn't used to be able to do, for example, create video ads, replicate image ads. You've got platforms like Midjourney, for example, where you can spin up video content without being a creative. I would urge some caution though. It doesn't mean that you are going to be able to do it as well as a creative just because those tools exist, but it's certainly democratized creative production over the last couple of years, which has been a huge win for a lot of small businesses who just don't have the money to invest in it. Because then it unlocks, digital display ads and video ads that previously you just wouldn't have been able to afford to produce.
And given your experience in paid search, what do you feel, which audience segment or data source, still is underused across paid media platforms?
Yeah. So given that we've got the B2B leading, I do think first party data, CRM data is still quite widely underutilized by many brands. You'll be surprised at the size of brands that we've worked with who just don't have accurate or up-to-date CRM data that we can then use in our ad targeting campaigns. Obviously, the challenge there is getting the client to have a reliable CRM, to be able to link that CRM to ad platforms, to use that first-party data and as a signal for our audience targeting. So I still think, as simple as it is, first-party data is massively underutilized by many brands. I think we had a rise a couple of years ago, if you remember, the reported death of third-party cookies with Google Chrome. Didn't end up happening in the end, but we had that kind of a lot of content and talks around the rise of contextual targeting. I do think contextual targeting, so showing ads in the right context, for example, targeting topics and themes that are related to your products and services, is underutilized. It can work really, really well because you need to be showing your ads when people are in that environment and looking at that content that links back to your service. For example, if you're selling a pair of running shoes, showing it on an athletics website is going to be the right place to show up. You don't want to show it on like a baby advice website because people aren't in that mindset. Contextual signals are still underutilized in my opinion because they're not really specific and really niche and people aren't tapping into them as much. And then I think publisher partnerships, so direct publisher targeting for display and programmatic is still underutilized. We don't spend enough time as paid media professionals, I think, planning and finding the sources of information where our audience spend their time. So publisher targeting is definitely underutilized as well. I do think as an industry we've become way too reliant on search because it's been the easiest thing to measure. It's typically the last touch point before conversion. And you think about how attribution works and GA4, it's still going to give most of the credit to the last touch point. But actually the real growth probably happens earlier in the journey. It's just much harder to measure. So what we advocate at Hallam is this kind of concept of targeting there's this 95-5 rule, if you're familiar with it, the fact that actually, if you look at any market, at any one time, only 5% of that market are actually looking for a solution. So if you're putting all your eggs in the search basket, you're only targeting that 5% of people who are ready to buy right here and right now. You're not influencing the 95% of people who are out of market. They might be looking in 3 months' time, 6 months' time. And when they do enter the market, they need to know who you are. So that's where your kind of audience first strategies come in, your kind of CRM data targeting, your contextual ads, your kind of demographic targeting on platforms like LinkedIn to create future demand, not just capture existing demand.
Absolutely. And, over the period of years that you have been with Hallam, have you ever said no to a client?
Yeah, plenty of times. Yeah. And more, we didn't used to. Because we were, I think in our younger years, let's say 10 or so years ago, we just wanted growth. And I think we learned the hard way that that's not every
You're
client's.
not taking everything.
Yeah. So definitely said no a few times. And also we fired clients who we don't think, treat the team well or they're not the right fit culturally. We've done that. And yes, for revenue, it can be short term, not great, but it's the right thing to do.
I'm so glad you said that because, I've also done that a couple of times, teams not getting treated well because, while we all talk about, kind of building a culture about the company, it all starts with treating people above revenue because it's the people who make the company. We can
It's
all
also
keep on, so we all can kind of say that it's a different ball game to practice that, right? As agencies, we are any which ways overrun at a lot of times, like we spoke about in the green room. But at some point, we should take a stand, for the way we want to operate our business, And
Exactly.
even if it means kind of compromising on revenue for a shorter period of time. But yeah, I'm glad you said that.
Well, also you've got to think about the fact that clients mainly, the agency brand is important clearly in your technical expertise, but they buy into people. So if you lose those people that they actually want to work with, you're going to put yourself in even more trouble. So yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Perfect. Yeah, Ben. But before we let you go, for our young audiences who are trying to make a mark, I mean, quite clearly, you have been a, one of the successful, I would say, I don't know whether I can say a business owner now or not, but yeah, entrepreneur who has, kind of has his own agency, kind of set it up, now growing. So for young listeners who are trying to break through and make a mark, starting their own agency, what is that one piece of advice you'd want to give to them?
Don't be too broad. I think when you're starting out, find your niche essentially. Find the area that you are actually genuinely good at, you're an expert at, and double down on that. I think like I said earlier on, with the rise of, if you want to get your brand out there, if you want to get yourself out there as an expert, don't just talk about the things that everyone else is talking about. You'll blend into the noise. So it's
Mhm.
about figuring out who you think your competitors are, what you think your audience want, and then where is your gap? What's the thing that you can do that your competitors can't? For example, what's that thing that makes you distinctive that still is a customer need? So, for example, for me at the moment, if we're looking at kind of agency partners, the types of services that I know are in demand from clients right now, things like digital PR, incredibly important due to the rise of generative AI, kind of social strategy, thought leadership strategy, creator partnerships, B2B influencers, that kind of stuff is just growing and really taking off. If it's any kind of service in that realm, you're going to be onto a winner. I think just doing things that have existed for a number of years, there's a lot of people that have probably already done it. It's going to be difficult to grow. So find a
Mhm.
niche, find something that's in demand right now and will continue to grow. So do your research and then kind of double down on that. And then when it comes to actually growing and building a team, I found the most successful strategy at Hallam over the years has been bringing in really not necessarily people who've done the job for years and years, because maybe they've
Mhm.
been trained the wrong way. What I found has worked really well for us is bringing in just smart people, smart graduates who really, really understand, they don't understand digital, but they understand general principles and they're intellectually capable, and then training them up. And they've often been the people who grow from consultant to manager to head of department to director in the business because they're just smart and they get it. And then they're kind of loyal to the business as well over time. So that's worked well for us.
Good point there. Good point. Perfect, Ben. I would like to play a quick rapid fire before we call it a day. All right. Okay. Your last Google search.
I don't even remember. John Lewis Christmas ad, actually, because I had to share it on Slack.
All right. Your next vacation.
LA.
What did you do with your first paycheck, Ben? First paycheck of your life.
Paid for my flat.
Okay. All right. Where do we find you on Friday evenings, after office or after work?
Yeah,
Oh,
nothing.
nice. Your celebrity crush.
I honestly don't keep up to date with celebrity. I don't. I try and distance myself from the celebrity land. So honestly, I couldn't name one.
All right, guys, this is an agency director for you. Yeah, kind of. So perfect, man. This has been a great conversation. Once again, thank you so much for taking out time to do this with us. For our audiences, if they want to reach out to you, which I'm sure they will after this goes live, what do you think? How can they do that?
So if you want to kind of reach out to me, I'm quite active on LinkedIn. So if you search Ben Wood Hallam, I'll pop up there. Happy to kind of take any messages directly if you want any support or just advice. I'm always quite active on there. So yeah, that's where to find me.
All right, then. Thanks, Ben. Cheers.
Cool. Thank you.